All right, so our superstar athlete, our athlete here is Johnny. He's kind of a jerk, right? So he says you can each double your score and include 10 more, and I'll still beat your score. So let's think about the expression to begin with. If you think about taking your score, doubling it, and then adding 10 more, go ahead and write that out on your paper. Go ahead and write that out. Your score, we're going to double it, then we're going to include 10 more. You're not thinking. You're talking and you're not thinking. Think. Did you write out that expression? Yeah. Okay. So then, what we need to make that expression say is Johnny's score is still higher. So, your score, what we're doing is taking your score and comparing it to Johnny's score. He spells it with an H. So, how would I be comparing my score to Johnny's score? How would my score compare to Johnny's? Whitney, what inequality would I put between them? If Johnny says he'll still beat yours, even when you double it and add 10 more, if Johnny beats it, his is greater than, so when I read this left to right, this will actually become less than because your score is less than Johnny's. Now, it's not only that your score is less than Johnny's, but what does he let you do with your score? How do I say that as an expression, Ellen?
How I wrote it was y times 2 plus 10 will be less than Johnny's score.
So I'm just going to go ahead and say 2y plus 10. Sorry, I'm going to try to get that cursor to stop blinking. Drives me crazy. So 2y plus 10 was then less than, and then Dom gave this away. What's Johnny's score? 300. So now what we're asked with is what could our scores have been? If Johnny's statement's true, how can I solve what our scores could have been? Colin?
Well, you could do 140 times 2, so this is 2y, and the y is equal to...
So you're saying if I know my score first, I could plug it in and check it? I agree, but I want to solve for a range of scores. I want to say my score could have been any of this range. Honestly.
First, we want to get rid of the 10, so we can minus 10 on both sides.
Yeah, the first thing we want to do is get rid of the fact that there was an addition of 10. So on both sides, we're going to subtract 10 away. Sorry that I'm writing on top of stuff. That then will leave me with 2y is less than 290.
Now you want to get just y, so you divide by 2.
Now we want to get just y, so we divide by 2. And that gives me a solution of why your score was less than... Well, 290 divided by 2, though. 145. So any scores that were less than 145, and Johnny's true. What he said is true. When we went bowling, did anybody score better than a 145? Yeah, then Johnny would have been false with his statement towards you. If you scored better than a 145, you'd be like, dude, Johnny, you're a jerk, you're wrong. But if you scored under 145, he is right, because he's a really good bowler. Questions on how we solve this? You can't. It's impossible. All right, any questions here? Yeah. That is not what I wanted.
Oh no! Click the X button over there.
What I want is that. Haha. That. Yes. And I don't know how to work it yet. I practiced over break, but until you're actually doing it, it's a little weird. Any questions? All right, let's move on to our 3 examples here. We're going to write down an inequality that will match the situation given to us. So try to take the verbal situation, turn it into a numerical. Be careful. Actually, some of us had issues. So I've already been grading the Chapter 8 test. We had issues with the verbal to numerical. That was one thing that some of us are struggling on. How do I take a verbal sentence, turn it into the numerical? Oh, we don't actually have to solve here. We're just practicing taking the verbal into the numerical. So Ashley, on this first one here, it says 9 plus 5.5 times the number is more than 50. How'd you write that mathematically? Okay, so is that what you started with? Okay, so you had n. So you can either do a multiplication symbol, you can do parentheses, something, so that 5.5 was multiplied to it. Or another option that we have here, and it's a little bit cleaner, is do 5.5, then the variable. Put the number first. So then what'd you do? Yeah, plus the 9. Ooh, is more than. It's a greater than sign. Is more than 50. So remember, addition is commutative. You could have the 9 first here. So some of you guys might have 9 plus 5.5 times n is greater than 50. That's totally fine if you have that. Any questions? Sean, what'd you have? For a lunch special, costs $9. The Egyptology Club can spend at most $50. How many lunch specials can they order if they also share a dessert that costs $5.50? Yeah, so let's break it apart. What are we doing multiple times? The lunch special, right? So we have the 9, then times however many lunch specials we buy. So let's just say like S for specials. Are you good, Julian? Okay, you keep turning around, so I didn't know if you had a question. Then, what else happens? What else do we purchase?
Share dessert that costs $5.50.
Yeah, does that happen multiple times or once? Once. So we just add $5.50. Now, that's what we've spent, right? How much money do I have? So can I spend more than 50? No. So I spend, what inequality symbol comes next? Less than or equal to the $50. I can spend all of it, but I can't spend more than what I have. That doesn't make any sense. And Mr. Williams already talked. Anish, what about you read 50, or you read a 50-page chapter about the early Egyptians. You read at a rate of 5.5 pages per minute. That's really fast. By the way, guys, if you're reading 5 pages per minute, that's probably not a hard enough book. Yeah, you're like an extreme reader. After how many minutes will you have fewer than 9 pages left? Now, this is weird. Fewer than 9 pages left. So, Nish, did you get to this yet? So let me give you guys like 30 seconds-ish. Analyze this for a second on your own. I'll shut up. Try to write this out. Oh, yeah, we'll go back and solve the second and the third ones. We just want to write them out first. So if you're done with the third one, you can go ahead and solve the second one if you have yet to do that yet. So, Anish, what it tells me is something about pages left. What do I want with pages left? How do I... Yeah, I want fewer than 9 pages left. So the pages left, I need to be less than 9. Now, how do I know how many pages I have remaining? Yeah, we start with 50 minus what? How quickly am I reading? 5 and a half times what? That's 5 and a half for every minute. So that's going to be 5 and a half M. So take a moment, choose either the second or the third one to solve. Ozzy, which of these are you choosing to solve? The third one. So what did you do first? This is a little bit dangerous.
I added 5 and a half.
Why?
Because that's negative and bring it up to 0.
So guys, I need all your eyes up here. This is where this gets really dangerous. When you think about the process of solving inequalities or equations, if you go here to add 5.5, that 5.5 is not subtracted from the variable. How's that 5.5 attached to the variable? Multiplication. This is wrong. We do not add here. We first undo addition or subtraction. What is being added or subtracted on the variable side? Ozzy? The 50 is what's being added or subtracted. It is a positive value. So the first thing we do to solve over here is subtract 50. And here's what my expression actually turns into saying. If I'm reading, it's like a negative value because things are like disappearing. If I'm reading 5.5 every minute, I'm comparing that to how long it will take me to read, well, 9 minus 50. I need to read 41 pages. I need to get rid of or make disappear. 9 minus 50, if I start at a positive 9 and I take away 50, 9 gets me to 0, then below 0 I go another 41. But because they're both negative, my negatives are actually going to cancel out here. So, Julian, the next thing I do here to isolate my M is do what?
Times it by 5.5.
Well, how is it attached?
Multiplication.
So we need to undo that. Wait, we do what?
Divided.
We divide. So guys, make sure that you're showing this out. If you run out of room, get Post-its. That's why I've got tons of them sitting there. So we divide by the negative. Now let's see what all we forgot over break. Dividing by the negative is what makes this really, really tricky. There's one extra thing. So you know that your left-hand side becomes M. You know that your right-hand side becomes this division. Anyone have the number that it equals? It's like 7, 8. 7.45. So let's just say 7.5. But think about this. This situation. Don't think about the math right now. Think about the situation. I'm reading. I want to know how long it will take me to have less than 9 pages. So if I read for a certain amount of time until I hit 9 pages, what if I want to keep having less than 9 pages? What about my time? Is it going to take more time or take less time to have less pages left? More time, right? So to have less pages left, I need more time read. So if I leave this how it is, this will say my minutes is less than 7.5. How could my time be less? So I could read for 1 minute and This is 7.5 minutes, but if it's anything less than, I could read for 0 minutes. Your inequality symbol has to flip direction. Why? We've divided by the negative. So guys, the biggest thing that will catch people on this homework is that if you multiply or divide by a negative value, it flips your inequality symbol. If you multiply or divide the geometric operations, multiply or divide by a negative, it flips the inequality. That's probably worth like a star or a circle or something, eyeballs drawn on your paper or something that directs your attention. Yeah, I mean, if you want to look at something, draw a couple eyeballs and it will grab your attention.
Would it be greater than or equal to? Because if you had 7.5 minutes, you would still have
No, so the equal to, if it were equal, you would have 9 pages left. But we want fewer than 9 pages. 9 doesn't work. 9's not fewer than. 9 is 9. I need numbers that are fewer than 9. Does that make sense? Yeah, fewer versus the same. Any questions on that third one? We're going to solve the second one still. Third one good? So in my second one here, Noah, what would I want to do first? Sorry, I got to fix my 50 here. What do I want to do first, dude? Yeah, because I always undo addition subtraction first. I subtract the 550 from both sides. Now, do I flip my inequality symbol?
Yeah.
No. I'm subtracting. We only ever flip if we're multiplying, dividing by a negative. That's why I wanted to point this out. We're just subtracting. Nothing happens with my inequality symbol. It stays less than or equal to. My right side becomes 44.5. And my left side is now just 9s. So Noah, to finish this out and get the 9 by itself, what do? Divide by 9. Now, this is specific to equations, but if you ever get stuck, I've got a great poster back there that walks you through the steps. It also starts as far back as if you had to distribute. Yeah, so we're doing steps 2 down, but here in 9.4, we'll be doing steps 1 all the way down, where you distribute first and then solve. The only difference here is instead of an equation back there, these are inequalities. These are not equal signs. So this stays the same all the way through, because when I do the division, I'm dividing by a positive. So that stays the same, and what do we get as our answer?
Oh, it's 4.94.
And that would be lunch specials, right? So really, yeah, we could get 4. So really, because if we want to talk actual values, now the time, I can have a partial minute in there. I can have partial amounts of time. You can't have partial amounts of lunch specials. Can I get just the egg roll, please? But at the lunch special price. Yeah, they would probably just tell you to leave. I don't know if I have a clear page on this one, like clear all the ink. All right, try the got it on your own. First, we got to write it out. Half of a number t plus 25.9 is at most 203.56. Do you guys need help? Why are we talking? Anyone confident enough they want to come solve it?
Yeah.
Ozzy, you are?
Yeah.
Get your answer and then you can come up.
Alright, I've had it for a while.
Zoom in even further for you.
For this one. Wait, are we
Well, so go ahead and write out the inequality you have, then we'll work to solving it. We're going to talk about the easiest way to solve. You can change it to a capital. Yeah, if you have to use T, you can always change it to a capital. Well, you didn't have to, but thank you. So when Ozzy saw the at most, if your parents say like, okay, clean your room, and depending on how good of a job you do, we'll give you at most $20. So you could get $20, but if you do a crappy job, how much could you get? $1, $10, $5, 50 cents. They could give you a penny, and they still gave you at most 20. So Ozzy identified that if this is at most, it needs to be less than or equal. I could get that whole $20, or in this case, I could get the whole 203.56, but I could also have less than that. So as I start my solution process, thank you very much, Ozzy. Jaslyn, what would I do first here? I undo my addition by subtracting 25.9 on both sides. That will give me, I'm going to shift over just so I have a little bit of room to work vertically, half of my t, and then just less than or equal to, because my 25.9 is gone now. What do I have left on the right-hand side? What do we have remaining on the right-hand side after the subtraction? All I'm asking you to do is literally punch in about 7 buttons. Yeah. 177.66. So now, this is where you can make your life really easy. Except, it's going to throw you off for a second. We need to undo multiplication. And we're going to use multiplication. Or, this multiplication is really division. Because guys, remember, multiplication and division are really the same thing. Addition and subtraction are really the same thing. Monica, what am I talking about here?
So to get rid of the half, we multiply by its reciprocal, so that way it cancels out.
Any time you have a fraction that is multiplying, you can just multiply by its reciprocal. Or we could realize that half of t is really t divided by 2. But what if this was 3/4 t? Then you just multiply by 4/3. So always use the reciprocal. Now I come over here and I have to do the same thing. So I times by 2/1 over here. That on my left-hand side gives me just t is less than or equal to. I then double my right-hand side and I get 300.32. So my t value would be less than or equal to 355.32. Any questions? I keep wanting to clear this. I wonder if there's an easy way. I do not think so. Yeah, I'll just have to retrain myself. So, try this one on your own. I'm going to give you 45 seconds. I bet you can solve it that quickly. Not that you have to, but I bet you can. If you're not confident with the graph, hang on for a second, we'll do that together. Bless you. 10 seconds. Elena, what's the first thing you do to work towards isolating this variable?
You do minus 12.
Yep. We subtract the 12 from both of our sides, leaving us with x divided by negative 3 is less than 16.9. And then the next thing we do, Mr. Smith? Yeah, the next thing we do to get rid of x being divided by negative 3, we multiply by negative 3. Now, what's the trick when we do that? You were next anyway. Switch the inequality symbol. So my left-hand side now becomes just x. I switch my inequality symbol or flip it depending on how you want to say it. And then when I multiply by negative 3, my value here all becomes negative. Be careful with your sign. That's where people will make their mistake. And it becomes negative 50.7. Any questions? Now, we are asked to graph this. So, when we go to graph this, graphing is not difficult. You just have to slow yourself down. First thing we do is just draw a circle. And it doesn't even have to be a perfect circle. So, where am I going to draw my circle? How do I know where to draw my circle? Julian?
To the left of negative 15.
Yeah, I want to go to negative 50 and go slightly further. So, negative 50.7, right about here. Now, I then decide, and if you're not used to this process, you might want to be writing this down. So, step 1 is draw your circle. That looks like a G, but sorry. Gurgle. Step 2 is do I shade it in?
No. It's not a solution. Because it doesn't have the equal to.
It doesn't have the equal to. So we do not shade it in. Then my third step is shade over. Sorry, erasing takes longer, so I may just scribble over top of myself sometimes. So if x is greater than my value, do I shade up the number line? Down the number line? Up it. So, and we draw an arrow to say we keep going because it goes forever. Any questions? Excuse me? Shade. So we ask ourselves about shading twice. First thing we do is ask, is the circle shaded in? So we shade in, then we shade over. So it's do we shade in, which direction do we shade over? So closed or open, left or right, sort of is what you're asking yourself. Any questions from the front remaining? We obviously are only going to have 9-3 for homework, so while we flip to the back, if you would like to get into your plan book, into that notes page, if you didn't use that yet, we're going to use that for your homework this week while we're waiting for Copy Center. So a magician's assistant, we've got about 4 minutes left, we've got time to solve this, makes $10.60 each hour. He has already saved $53.70. How many hours must he work in order to have at least $165? Maybe for his magic act, he needs a hoverboard, and he has found a hoverboard for $165. So he needs to save up until he has at least that amount of money. So I kind of in my head think to myself, okay, the money that I have, or like my money, if I am the magician's assistant, if I put myself in the situation, needs to be at least 165. Now, if it's at least, what inequality symbol, Samantha, am I going to use between there?
At least, use a less than and equal.
So my money, I want to have less than $165?
More than
So be careful. Think through the situation after you write your inequality. It's real easy to have the wrong one. Think about it once you write it. My money needs to have more than or equal. Now, how much money am I producing or making, or like the values that I'm earning? Sam?
$10.60 an hour.
$10.60, and I can use H for hours. I already have a certain amount though. So Sam, what do I do to my 1060H? I'm not just making money. I've already got money. So
You have to add the money you have before.
So we add my 5370, and that's still greater than or equal to 165. We can now start solving. Mr. Hoover, what do we want to do first to start solving this?
Get rid of the 53.
Yeah, it's 53.7.
7
By
by subtracting that
subtracting it.
and to the 165.
That gives us that the amount of money I make per hour times the amount of hours will need to be greater than or equal to 109.3. Yeah. 101. 3 away from the. Somebody triple check it. I think it should be 101. No, 53. So forget about the 7 for a second. 53 away from 65 would give you 12. Right? Then take away the 0.7. It's 111, not 101. It's 111. 0.3. Then, almost through the stack. Moon, what do I do now to get the H by itself?
You would subtract the 10.60
How is it attached to the H?
or divide.
Ah, it's multiplied. So we want to divide by 10.60. Divide by 10.60. That gives me that the hours that they would need to work will be greater than or equal to 10.5.
Why is it so quiet?
Well, Pettigrew's not here, and she's pretty loud, so.
The truth comes out. It's gonna be reality.
Or maybe it's because Jeremiah's not here.
Hashtag
All right, any questions remaining?
Hashtag